everybody. I'm Aaron Simmons. This is Philosophy for Where We Find Ourselves, June 26th, 2023. Hope you guys are having an amazing week. Let me remind you, as we get near the end of the month, a new monthly newsletter will be coming out for those who have subscribed to the newsletter on my website. So please go check out jaronsimmons.com. Get subscribed to the newsletter. It will be dropping on July the 1st. So you don't want to miss it. Exclusive content, all kinds of recommendations from music and books, a bunch of really cool stuff. So get signed up there and don't miss another month. If you have not, also, while you're at it, please get subscribed here to Philosophy for Where We Find Ourselves on the YouTube channel. I greatly appreciate all your support and all the encouragement that I get from all of you who are thinking with me about stuff that matters. All right, so let's dive in today. Today's question or topic was submitted to me by a former student of mine named Thomas Moore. And Thomas presented me a question about Kierkegaard and Nietzsche on a very particular theme. Both of them have discussions of what we might call the abyss or depths or the chasm, right? These ideas that are, we might say, the inverse of ascending to the heights of the mountaintops. These are instead discussions of 10,000 fathoms deep in Kierkegaard's situation and finding ourselves suspended over the depth. And in Nietzsche, we find ourselves confronted with the abyss in all sorts of different ways. So Thomas asked, what is it that I make of these two different ideas that show up in Kierkegaard and Nietzsche, but yet look like a very similar thematic? So today what I'm going to do is offer just a few thoughts of how to make sense of Kierkegaard and Nietzsche specifically relative to this idea of the depths or the abyss, and then also try to give some suggestions on how we all can appropriate and appreciate the things that they are saying in unison that might help us be able to navigate our existential situation and circumstances a little bit more effectively. For Kierkegaard, the idea of the depths shows up precisely when he's discussing what it looks like to be without certainty, to be without guarantees. In other words, the announcement of being suspended over 10,000 fathoms, right? Basically, we are above a yawning chasm, above the depths that threaten to subsume us into them. For Kierkegaard, this is an invitation to recognize the radicality of decision. That where we are in our lives is not something that is countenanced by algorithms for right thinking, by guidebooks that instruct us how to live. Instead, we are confronted with the existential risk that actually defines what Kierkegaard calls faith. So when he presents us as over the 10,000 fathoms, he doesn't just leave us there or wreck us against rocks like we might find in Schopenhauer. Kierkegaard is not a pessimist, nor is he a nihilist. The depths signify the importance of our location, our situation. And they announce for Kierkegaard not that we are suspended over 10,000 fathoms and there despair, but we are suspended over 10,000 fathoms and there find faith. Now, faith here can be a very specifically religious context, as it is in Kierkegaard's own case, but I want to suggest that in a broader existential sense, what it means to find faith with Kierkegaard in the depths or above the depths is that we are called to embrace the risk in order to be properly directed. Faith, as I define often, is risk with direction. Unless we announce the risk, make sense of the fact that we are not with certainty when it comes to our decisions and our way forward, then we can actually recognize that the decisions we make have existential weight. They matter because they may not be correct. That riskiness that attends our finitude and defines our directionality is what Kierkegaard, I think, is trying to announce and present to us with this metaphor. Nietzsche's slightly different, but hits the same existential theme. For Nietzsche, we are confronted with the abyss. And here, this is important to understand that for Nietzsche, the abyss is less a sea metaphor like we find in Kierkegaard, but is instead something that accompanies where it is that he finds philosophers to reside, namely on mountaintops. Nietzsche says that philosophers are those with long legs who can breathe the thin air and jump from mountaintop to mountaintop. And so when we're on top of mountains, we are also confronted with the constant threat of the abyss that yawns beneath us. So for Nietzsche, facing up to the abyss is actually a recognition of and embrace of what we might call the meaninglessness that is always the context in which we then will our lives as significant. Now, this is a subtle difference. For Kierkegaard, the 10,000 fathoms is not a chasm of meaninglessness. It is the realization that we can be swallowed by that which is all around us, right? That we've got to find a way to be able to stand even if the firmness is never something that is guaranteed. For Nietzsche, to wrestle with the abyss is to own the fact that there is maybe nothing but abyss until we deploy our will and say, as he puts it, yes to it. Why would Nietzsche say yes? Well, this I think is similar to Kierkegaard. When Kierkegaard says that there we find faith, and Nietzsche says we have to will the abyss, they're both trying to help us understand the importance of not trying to escape our situation, but to live more fully and purposively into it. Here we are. The human condition is what it is. We don't get out of it in order to make it meaningful, in order to make it intentional. We instead decide whether thriving and fulfillment is going to be something that announces our joy as a companion in the condition rather than as something that we can, achieve by escaping our humanity. In that sense, they are both stressing the importance of finitude, the importance of being flawed, the importance of our limitations as essential to how we make sense of ourselves and the narratives of our own identity. In this sense, they are both moving us in the direction of something that one of my philosophical mentors, David Kangas, once said, which was, in the end, there is the unmanageable, but we would be trivial beings without it. That's the thought, I think, for both Kierkegaard and Nietzsche. The unmanageable remains, no matter how good our decisions, no matter how bad our decisions, no matter how confident or how humble we try to live, the unmanageable remains. But it is precisely in the face of that unmanageability that significance emerges, that meaning is made, and that purpose is achieved. Now, how is it that we can take this Kierkegaardian and Nietzschean idea, despite their differences, how can we apply this and put it into practice in our own lives in an everyday way? I think that there are at least two things that I would recommend here. First, it's important that in a time of actuarial tables and insurance policies and doing everything we can to manage risk in our lives, that we understand when it comes to existential situations, risk is essential. It is necessary. And it may even be good. It's what gives the meaning to the decisions we make in the face of the fact that we are not assured, that we are not guaranteed. And this, I think, is important in all of our lives, right? Whether we're 19 trying to figure out where to go to college, or 35 and trying to figure out whether to take a different job, or 70 trying to decide whether to move into a retirement community. Like all of these different stages of life fundamentally are defined by the existential risk. We can do otherwise, says Dietrich Bonhoeffer. And so remembering that should not stifle our action, but should maybe put a spring in our step. Don't act hastily, don't act foolishly, but act. And it is important that we do so on purpose, with intention, and with eyes wide open, that we might then change our mind about the decision in light of new evidence. That critique remains possible. We are not people who simply are, we are becoming. And so it's important to inhabit that riskiness as part of our very human condition. And the second thing that I would suggest, even in a far more practical, less existentially grand way, is it's important also for us to remember and remind each other that every day, every moment is significant, that the abyss may swallow us yet. So do what you can to find joy now. Wherever we are, on the mountaintop, hanging out at the beach like my family is this week, whether it's at the office, whether it's at home making dinner, whatever it is we do and however it is we find ourselves walking through life, how is it that we can right now, right here, say yes with Nietzsche and find faith with Kierkegaard? So right here and right now on this ledge, facing this abyss, suspended over the depths, what do we choose? Who will you choose to become? That question, I think, is perhaps the most important one we can ask as existing beings. And all of us, whether we admit it or not, will live lives that will count as the answer we have given. That's pretty cool stuff, I think. So thanks to Thomas More for suggesting this topic. I hope this is helpful to him and to all of us as we think about two important existential philosophers and also how to live as existential beings. I'll see you next time, unless a piano falls on our heads.